CBC News has learned more about the Alberta Premier's controversial trip to Florida last week. Danielle Smith participated in an event with far-right podcaster Ben Shapiro, where she was asked about Canada becoming a 51st state. The CBC's Jason Markusoff joins us now from Calgary. All right, so Jason, Premier Smith took a lot of heat for attending this gala. How'd you do? How'd you make out with this one?
So I think it seemed like she knew that she was going to be watched on this one, given how much controversy on the federal campaign trail there was over her comments earlier this month at Breitbart News, where she talked about Pierre Poilievre being in sync with Donald Trump's direction, and this idea that she was apparently recommending to administration officials that they pause the tariffs, in part because this was hurting the Conservatives' election cause. Ben Shapiro, this podcaster that she was on stage with at the PragerU, this controversial conservative election group's fundraiser gala. Ben Shapiro was talking to her about how Poilievre seems to be hurting in this whole thing. We should remove this obstacle to the trade war. Danielle Smith wasn't biting, wasn't really going there. Where she did go, which I think was interesting, was, other politicians have talked about elbows up with relation to the 51st state thing, or the idea that, Canada is not for sale, putting on hats and everything. Danielle Smith's not taking that approach. When Ben Shapiro was joking about that, here's what she said. You know that Canada tends to be a little bit more progressive. That would be like adding another California to your electoral system, and you would never have a Republican president in the White House again. So I would just caution you that it's probably best for us to just stay friends, and friends should never move in together. So taking the much gentler approach in her diplomacy, not saying that we take offense and you shouldn't be saying this to us, Americans.
Well, yeah. I mean, the Breitbart thing inflamed a lot of things. This doesn't seem like it's had that effect nationally, certainly. What's the reaction there in Alberta?
In Alberta, the Alberta NDP was going hard on her, pleading with her not to go, talking to somebody who's this Ben Shapiro figure who has mocked the idea of Canada as a country, and this idea that she's going down at taxpayers' expense. They've even talked about her as on Team Trump, not Team Canada. But Danielle Smith, she's been taking almost a mission accomplished with this, saying that the big deal was that on Friday, the day after she appears at this stage with Ben Shapiro, he's on his podcast talking about tariffs for part of his podcast, and it's very well listened to, like tens of millions of listeners to a podcast. The only issue being, though, that he's said this before, including on his podcast a few weeks ago.
All right, Jason, thank you so much. This is CBC's Jason Markusoff in Calgary.